Welcome to Highline BI 348 class video number 28. Hey, if you want to download this Excel file, BI 348 chapter 2.5, import one text files. And it's important for this chapter. There are a lot of files to download. So this is the example, import one. Or you want to download the important zipped folder, because that zipped folder has our source files to import. You can click on the link below the video. Now, whether or not you go to the class website or the link below the video, these will be the files to download. Now, we actually want to go over and look at the finished result. We are going to build a dashboard like this. Here's some gray data analysis. We have the classes Business 135, a business math class, and Business 210, a statistics class. And we want to be able to click on any particular year and see our mean, standard deviation, and the distribution as shown through a histogram for any particular year. All right, so that's the end result. But here's the deal. If we go look at our source data, and here it is, the import 01 text files, and we're going to look at our start files. For this first example, we have text files 1998 to 1990 and 1990 to 2000. If we open these up, they're just text files, tab delimited. That means each one of the columns or fields are separated by tabs. So how do we get that into Excel? Well, here's the cool thing. Here's a folder, and I'm going to click the back button. That folder, we're going to tell Power Query just to look at this folder, and whatever text files are in there will automatically be imported, cleaned, and end up in our final report. Not only that, but when we later dump new files into this folder, the whole process will automatically update. So let's go to our start file. All right, here it is, Power Query, and in the Get External Data, and we're going to look at a few different options from this over the next few videos. We're going from File and this amazing From Folder. It's going to ask us to browse, so we browse. I'm browsing, and when I get to my final folder, there it is, I click OK. Now I click OK. And here is a bunch of information of the files in that folder. Before we do anything, I want to come over here and give this query a good name. Get text, gray data, and enter. Now, the first thing we want to do is look through these columns, and here it is. It shows me the extension for each one of the files in that folder. Anytime I click one of these drop-down arrows, just like in Excel, it will give me a unique list of options. And I can filter out, and I don't want the CSV files. I only want the TXT files. And click OK. So it's filtered that, and look over here. It's memorizing the steps, all of the data transformation and cleaning steps that we do in Power Query will be memorized over here. Now, we don't need any of this data. We only need the content column, which has the data. So I'm going to right-click the content field and check that out. Remove other columns. Instantly, they're gone. Now, the double downward pointing arrow with a little line, when I click that, it will expand. Now, notice over here it did a bunch of steps here, including importing. It called it a CSV, but this is really text. And notice on that step right there, it actually treated the field name from the text file not as the field name, but actually as a record. And look at this. It automatically knew to promote the headers, so we have the proper field names, and change the type. So this is text, and then the home ribbon transform. You can see text. This one is decimal number, and this one is text. Wow, so that did a bunch of steps for us. Now, anytime we import from a folder many files, we actually want to make sure that these field names in some of the other files didn't get stuck as a record. And one way to do this is to find which column has the fewest number of unique records. And I know course ID only has 2, so I'm going to click the drop down. This is just like the filter in Excel. It'll give us a unique list. Now, since Power Query can import a lot of data, you always want to come down here and click Load More if you see that. because that forces it to look through more records. And notice, somewhere down there in that second file, it did not promote that header. So we have to uncheck this. Course ID will be unchecked. And remember, if we see course ID, there'll be a decimal grade and an academic year. Those are the field names from the text file. So by filtering that out, it'll filter out that record that's not really a record. When I click OK, boom, there it is. All of our steps are completed. We have a proper name. Come up to close and load. Close and load just saves it on a new sheet. We don't want that. We always want to go to close and load to. We have the choice here, a table, and then we can put it somewhere. Only create a connection. We'll do that next video in unison with add this data to the data model. But here we want a table. I want to say on the existing sheet, A1 is fine. So now I click load. And over here we have almost 4,000 records loaded. Now I'm going to come down here and double click and call this gray data and enter. So now we have our imported data and we want to build our dashboard. Now if we go look at our end result, remember we have these 3 charts and this 1 slicer. So there's actually going to be some behind the scenes pivot table reports that are fueling these charts and governed by this slicer. Now what is a dashboard? A dashboard is a data visualization tool that illustrates multiple metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, and automatically updates as new data becomes available. So if we come back over here, our key performance metric for each class is going to be mean, standard deviation, and the distribution. If I click through these and get over here, I notice that in 88, 89, Business 135 was over 3 grade point average. But for some reason in 2005, 2.3. And if we look down here, right, this is a histogram, and these columns tell us the frequency. And boom, look at that. That went way down, but it mostly looks like it was because of these zeros. Now, that's using our end result. And let's take a quick look at what makes a good data dashboard or effective dashboard. Presents timely summary data or metrics KPIs. Metrics KPIs should be useful for the decision maker. Dashboards should inform rather than overwhelm. So if we look over here, we don't have like lots of other minutia. It's pretty straightforward. We have the mean, the standard deviation, and the distribution, and should call attention to unusual metrics, KPIs that require attention or are of interest, like that column with the zeros. All right, let's go back to our awesome import from Power Query. Now, the first pivot table we're going to need is mean and standard deviation for each one of our courses. So I click in a single cell, Alt-N-V. And notice that the name of that table range, remember that's the output from Power Query. It took the name of our query, and actually when it imported it onto this sheet, it created an official Excel table, and that's the name of it. All right, existing sheet, I'm going to put it just like an E1. None of this stuff is really going to be part of our finished report, but it will be governing how the charts and the slicers move. Now I want course ID down here. Decimal grade, I'm going to drag it twice. We're going to do our mean and standard deviation. Right-click, summarize values by, average for mean. Right-click, summarize values by, and I don't see standard deviation, more options. One of our 11 functions, stdev, and click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and just type names up here. So this will be class, tab. This will be mean, tab. And this will be, click right here, F2, and I'm going to leave it stdev for standard deviation. Now I'm going to highlight E to G and change the column width. I actually don't really need to do that because really, again, this is going to be represented by a chart. Right-click and number formatting. Number 2 decimals is fine. Click OK. That number formatting from this pivot table will show up over there in our chart. Number formatting, same thing. Number 2 decimals. Click OK. Now I can build my chart. And notice the categories are categorical data. So we'll make a column chart. Insert. Over here, column. Hey, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to get rid of my pivot chart fields. Close that. Right click. Hide all field buttons. I want to click on the legend. Ctrl 1 to open up the task pane. Wow, looks like it's way off to the side. Actually, I'm going to say the bottom. We'll put this on the bottom. I definitely want to see the numbers at the top, so data labels. And unlike the dashboard we looked at just a second ago, I left some numbers here and here. That is chart junk, so I'm going to delete that. Now, I do want a title. And since we're ultimately going to have a slicer based on the academic year, I'm going to go ahead and add, pull this out of the way, and add a slicer here. Analyze, up in the filter group, insert slicer, academic year, and click OK. Slicer tools, options. I don't know how many. Let's change it to 4. We'll leave it there right now. And when we add a slicer like this, it is filtering. So when I click 1988 to 89, looks like the chart's working fine. We got the mean and the standard deviation. But I want to make a label. And I don't know how to create a label and connect it to the slicer. So I'm actually going to click back in the pivot table. And I close the field list. So I'm going to say Show Field List. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to drag the academic year down to filter. Now, really, this is doing the same thing, right? But watch this. When I change the filter and the slicer, boom, it changes there. Because that's in the cell, I can make a chart title link to that cell. So now I'll close this. And remember, all of this is kind of behind the scenes, so I can kind of do stuff where I want. I'm going to make my title equals, and I'm going to say academic year, and in double quotes, space, equal sign, space, end double quote, ampersand, and boom, click on that. And there you go. So if I slice this or filter it, there is my label. Pull this off to the side. Let's bring our chart back over. All right, I'm going to click the plus. Chart title. With the solid line, I'm going to say equal sign, shoots me up there, and I'm going to click on that cell with that new label and enter. Now let's see if it's working. If I click 1991 to 1992, that is looking awesome. Now I'm going to Control and roll. We're going to make a few more pivot tables. Pull this down over here. And we'll connect the slicer to all the pivot tables. So click back in the data set, Alt N V, and I'm going to put this on the existing sheet location, E11, and click OK. Now this is going to be our histogram. I'm going to take the actual decimal grade and get a unique list for decimal grades. I'm not going to group it. I'm going to leave it like that. Drag it down here. It'll default to sum. Right click. Summarize values by, and we're doing frequency, so we're going to use count. And now I'm going to want to filter each one of these reports by course ID. And this one is going to be Business 135, and click OK. Now let's change the labels. Grade, tab, frequency, and enter. Now I want to make a label similar to what we did up here. And I can see I want a little bit more room, so I'm actually going to highlight the entire pivot table, point to the edge, and when I see my move cursor, I'm going to click and drag down to. And right here, I'm going to make a chart label. And watch this. I'm going to say, hey, that filter right there, Business 135, and join it to double quotes, comma, space, end double quotes, and join it to, hey, this label up here, and enter. So now our chart title will say Business 135, academic year, based on whatever's there, based on the filter, based on the slicer. Now I can click in a single cell and make my chart. Histogram, right? Column. We're going to choose that one. Control and roll, get rid of this. Right click, hide all field buttons. I don't need this legend right here. I definitely want that with the solid line. Equal sign shoots me up there. I'm going to click in E8. And look at that. Now I click on the column, Control 1, gap width. Maybe I can do some formatting. You can do whichever formatting you want. Vary colors by point, solid line. Close that for the time being. Plus symbol, because I definitely want data labels at the top. It looks like I'm going to want those aligned differently. So Control 1, I just closed it. And you might have to click through, but that's going to be under Properties. Remember, when you're learning these, it kind of just requires that you click through till you find what you want. Text direction, I want to click Rotate All Text 270. That's kind of off to the side. But the third one there, click OK. Definitely want some axis titles. Right there, I'm just going to move the chart down because I can't quite get it. Equal sign, click on frequency, enter. I click on this equal sign, grade, and enter. There's some chart junk I delete. I may or may not want lines. I don't think I do. Delete. Now Control and roll. Well, I have 2 charts and a slicer. And I can test this right now. Click on any one of these and look at that. Now notice when I do that, the data isn't changing. And it's because this pivot table is not connected to this slicer. So I would like to right-click the slicer, Report Connections. And look at that, all the pivot tables available. I can just check them. Now we're going to do one more pivot table and chart, so we'll have to come back and do that again. But when I click OK, oh, that is beautiful. Our data dashboard is starting to take shape. All right, so we have our second pivot table and our second chart. I want to select all 3 charts and the slicer. I'm going to hold the Control key and click on each one of these objects. Control X to cut. Come over to Grade Dashboard, a sheet I inserted and named. And I'm going to Control V. Now we can click outside and then click and move each one of these. And now I'm going to grab the slicer. And there's a great trick. You can hold the Alt key. And once you're holding Alt and moving it, it's jumping and fitting. And I'm going to try and jump and fit it to the B column, row 2. Now I want to see the size of these. So I'm going to go up to Slicer Options. And I'd like to make each one of these 3 inches, enter, by 5 inches, enter. Click outside here. I'm going to do the same trick with the Alt key. I want to click and drag and try and get it right to the J. And this is a chart, so I'm going to come up to Format. There's 3 and 5, enter. Let's try that here too. Click and hold Alt. I'm going to drag it to right below 17 and on the J. Format. It's got a 3 and a 5, enter. And over here, I will click, hold Alt, and click and drag. Looks like B and 17. Format 3 and 5, and enter. Then I'm going to highlight all of these cells and add a color, a background color, something super light. And actually, maybe I will right-click too and insert. And then I want to type a title up here. It looks like this slicer I'm going to hold Alt and click and drag. There we go. And now I have my data dashboard emerging. If I click on each one of these, I can clearly see everything is moving. That is absolutely amazing. Now we have our Control S, our data dashboard, and all of our pivot tables running those charts in that slicer. And then here's our data set. And I want to go over, and we have some files. If we come over to our Windows Explorer, these were the 2 original text files. And we have a folder start file. But when you download it, it's import 01 text CSV files. I'm going to go to new. And now I'm going to highlight both of these, Control C to copy. Going up here to import and then start, Control V. There are 4 text files. And if we look up here, we told Power Query to look in start files and find extensions.txt. That was part of our memorized query. So when we come over here, and I'm going to Control down arrow. So right now there's about 3,000. Control Home. Right-click, refresh. And it's working. There it goes. Control down arrow. We can see we now have 9,000 records. And instead of refreshing each one of these, I'm going to go up to the Data tab. And under Refresh All, I'm going to say Refresh All. There's actually a keyboard, Ctrl Alt F5. And hopefully now, when we go over to our dashboard, you got to be kidding me. That is amazing. I can go all the way back to the academic year 88 to 89. 2001, I can click on 2005. Wow, look at that. So if I'm looking through this, it looks like here's all these grades, right? Boom. Lots of, not very many zeros down here. And then all of a sudden right here, look at all those zeros. So now the next step, this is part of the analysis. We're analyzing this. We might want to go in, and my suspicion is right around 2005, 2006 is when their online classes first began. And so maybe there was some problems with online, understanding how to do online. So we might go back to our original data set and see if we could get a field that says, is this in class or online? Oh, man, but that is amazing. Look at that. A data dashboard. We have our slicer, our 3 charts, one on categorical data, the actual category of the class, and some calculations, mean and standard deviation, and our frequency distribution for continuous quantitative data, and our histogram, all based on some pivot tables and a Power Query import. Now, when we come back in our next video, we're going to see something similar, but this time we're going to import multiple Excel files using Power Query. All right, we'll see you next video.